This is us learning about dependent origination. What is dependent origination? Is a big teaching of Buddhism. The Buddha taught that everything originates dependent on something. Nothing, in terms of understanding suffering. Um, Suffering is dependently originated. Nobody gives suffering to you, and no creator God creates any suffering. Sometimes in the world, there is this understanding that a creator God has created the whole universe. This is not Buddha's teaching. The Buddha teaches that everything is dependently co-originating, not singly, but with some causes and effects. So I'm not sure if that tells anything, because it's just that that kind of a teaching is really profound. So I'm trying to show you at least this screen. And here, can you see this part? And 9.1 says, what is the law of dependent origination? So the law here is not like a law that we practice in the country. Law is another word some people use for Dhamma. Dhamma is also law, and remember that when you are reading about Buddhism. And I'm reading again, the law of dependent origination is one of the important laws of the universe discovered by Shakyamuni Buddha through enlightenment. It simply states that, try to read this part, it is produced, therefore the other is produced. It is extinguished, therefore the other is extinguished. It exists, therefore the other exists. It does not exist, therefore the other does not exist. It is an elaboration of the principle of cause and effect, highlighting the concept of interdependency of existence and also of the duality or non-duality. Don't try to understand the duality concept now. It looks simple, but in fact, it is very deep and profound, especially when it is applied to our life. Now, these are the other things that I want you to learn. Try to read this part. That's all we are learning for today. Ignorance, mental formation, consciousness, name and form, the six senses, contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, aging and death. Now, ignorance is the condition for mental formation. Mental formation is the condition for consciousness. Consciousness is the condition for name and form. Now, name and form is the condition for the six senses. The six senses are the conditions for contact. Contact is the condition for feeling. Feeling is the condition for craving. Craving is the condition for clinging. Clinging is the condition for becoming. Becoming is the condition for birth. Birth is the condition for aging and death. Aging and death is a condition for ignorance. Now, this is called the 12 links of dependent origination. This is for your future studies of Buddhism, that I'm only laying the foundation today. I can't read the chat. I'm not sure if anything is important in chat. Nothing important. And read this last two lines. All 12 links are interrelated and dependent on each other. Look at a football. and everything in the football is interrelated. You can't say this part is separately existing. They all are like, you can't separate any piece of it. Each one does not have its own nature. Thus, there is not no starting point, no ending point. They are cyclic maybe phenomena. Each link is a cause on one hand and an effect on the other. The occurrence of cause and effect may come about in a moment or over a period of lifetimes. It says 3 lifetimes, but it's within this cycle. So now, ask questions from me. Do you know what ignorance is? What is ignorance?
Not paying attention to something.
Once again,
Not paying attention to something.
right? Elaborate, please. Who? Somebody else, maybe?
Basically ignoring.
Huh?
It's like
Like ignoring something.
Exactly, ignoring something. What do we ignore?
ignore like one thing, like ignore a lot of things, maybe.
Yeah,
Ignore a lot of things. Let me say ignoring the truth. Okay? We ignore what truths? Buddhism teaches 4 truths, right? 4 noble truths. What are those?
Suffering, I think.
Exactly. Suffering is one truth.
The cause of suffering.
The cause of suffering, we
The
ignore
Noble
that.
paths.
the path to yes, and
Eight
suffering.
And ending suffering and the path leading to ending of suffering. And people
Yes.
ignore this truth. And this is called ignorance. Clear, right? And then we have mental formation. What is that?
It's how your mind works.
Exactly. It is how your mind works.
It's how you think,
It's
basically.
how you think. And because we think, we have consciousness. We become conscious on things, right? We become conscious on things that we see. We become conscious on things that we hear. We become conscious on things that we smell. And sometimes when you are knocked down, you are unconscious, at which point you don't see anything, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And what is name and form?
It's like a thing, I guess.
It's like we label things.
Yes, we label ourselves as our
We
names.
label based on feelings, we label based on perceptions, we label based on
A living thing.
colors, we label something based on something. At least we say it looks like a goat, it looks like an animal, it looks like a tree. What is happening there? We are naming. We
Naming.
are also looking at a form.
Mm-hmm.
And we need that information for our 6 senses to function, isn't that? Isn't that so?
Mm-mm.
Our 6 senses, what are our 6 senses?
Sight,
sight,
Sight, smell,
feeling,
taste,
touch,
hearing, and
touch,
touch.
and hearing.
And your mind, I guess.
I will tell it this way: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, and thinking. And when you learn science in school, they will not teach you about the 6th sense, the mind. Okay? Why? Because people will, your teacher or somebody will say, well, you can't measure it, you can't see it, you can touch it. Therefore, that 6th sense doesn't exist. But it does exist, and it is very important aspect of Buddha's teachings that we can do miracles when we cultivate our 6th sense, which is our mind. We cultivate it, we purify it, we do cleansing of it like we clean a cloth, and then it becomes luminous, light, bright, shiny, and big. And it's powerful. It's more than anything that science teaches. That's why Buddhism is so specific. For people who want to cultivate wisdom, Buddhism has everything about it. So when you go to college one day and they ask you to talk about Buddhism, you can talk about the 12 links of dependent origination, or you can say dependent co-origination because they arise together like cooperation. So this is like co-origination. And because of six senses, the number 6 is contact. That means you have eye contact, you have ear contact, you have nasal contact. It's like that. It's not like your contacts in a telephone. It's like you become how do we say? You become alert about things that we experience externally. Right? This is deeper. And then based on what we have, contacts with, we get feelings. Sometimes we feel happy, sometimes unhappy, sometimes we feel neutral. And when we feel happy about something, there can occur some craving to have more, some attachment. And when we have craving for something, then we want more of it. Therefore, we get cling to it. We get addicted to it. And that's like, honey for the bee. And because of this nature, we have birth cycle, we exist in some form, and then we die, and then we are again cling to some form, and then we die, and this is a continuous process. Questions, Pujani?
So you said that none of them can happen without the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So is it kind of like breaking down the scientific element? Like you can't break down oxygen,
Yeah,
and like you can't break down hydrogen or carbon or
exactly. They all support each other, and you can't really break. We have already identified them, but doesn't mean they exist independently. That's the process that happens in a fraction. This happens in a moment, and it happens sometimes millions of times that we can't even consciously notice. That's how fast it happens. So Buddhism is basically a mind science teaching us about the process of becoming and what happens when you don't have ignorance. Tell me.
Then there is no aging and death.
there's
Exactly. But let's go with number 2. When there is no ignorance,
Then there is no mental formation.
there's
when
no
there is
mental
no mental
formation,
formation, no consciousness.
no
When
need
there is
for
no consciousness, there is no name and
Name and
form.
form.
When there is no name and form, then there is no six senses. When there is no six senses, there is no contact. When there is no contact, there is no feeling. When there is no feeling, there is no craving. When there is no craving, there is no clinging. When there is no clinging, there is no becoming. When there is no becoming, there is no birth. When there is no birth, there is no aging and death. All right. I will show you a wheel. This is why the Buddha's teaching is called Dhamma wheel. And I think it would help you. It's also called Dhamma Chakra. And okay, maybe I'll do this dependent origination. And then it will show me a wheel. You see this. It will take a moment for it to show. What? You see the second one? I'm trying to zoom it out. It has a different set of. So this side is 12, this side is 12, and what happens is that ignorance and all of that is causing suffering, and then this is about attaining Nibbana. Not this link, please. Okay, here you have the link. All the 12 links. I will start with ignorance here, and then mental formation and consciousness, mind and matter. So Nama Rupa, name and form is also translated as mind and matter, and then six senses, and then contact, feeling, craving. Then you have attachment or clinging, and becoming, birth, aging and death. And now they divide it into past causes, present effects, and present causes, and future effects. So this cycle, let me send you the link. Please try to do a drawing of it, just for your knowledge. I've just sent it, just done sending it. Please open it on your browser so it will not disappear, and do a little drawing of it, and maybe draw something in the center that you like a shrine or something. But the main idea is to learn about the 12 links of dependent origination. So in the future, when you talk about Buddhism, you can include this. And primarily, the first link, which is ignorance, is that we ignore the Four Noble Truths. Any questions before I finish? I went fast because we have only a short time. Go ahead, Pujani.
You also said that. So like, let's say you don't have one. Is it like sort of knocking down a line of dominoes, sort of?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yes,
thinking.
kind of.
It's
But like it's more like the dominoes after they get knocked down, they come back up and then it's there to knock down again and it
Yeah.
keeps on
exactly.
going
It's
forever.
also like Legos, right? It keeps coming back to life until
Yeah.
you come to realize the Four Noble Truths, that this is suffering. Some people get sick and die, at which point, before death, they think, oh, I wish I done meditation in my life to overcome future birth. But sometimes, because of the body pain, it is too much for them that they can't even sit and meditate. This is why, starting from young age, um, you take control of your wisdom power, and dedicate more time to not become too self-conscious about negative things in life, but believe that you can always transform anything negative to positivity, and also reach higher positivity to a
Hmm.
happier level that an ordinary human being does not usually achieve. Um, as a monk, my goal is to achieve that higher goal, and my goal is also to teach you how to achieve that higher goal. Okay? As a Buddhist, our goal is to not, someday we get, sick of all the ordinary things that are happening in life. And sometimes wise people, before that, instead of waiting that long, they want to really achieve something bigger without using drugs in their life. And they do it through mental enhancement, like physical enhancement. You do mind cultivation. Nisit has a question.
You said that wise people instead of using drugs, they use their own power, like their mind power. How does drugs help you to do something good?
Drugs never help you because drugs have addictive substances, and sometimes people think that you can hallucinate with drugs, and
Oh,
it because drugs don't teach you mindfulness. Hallucination will kind of pull you into the darkness of ignorance, and you don't have any control there, and
okay.
therefore your brain stimulus is looking for it all the time. Drugs that way, exactly, Pujani. Drugs don't help, and people will have to put through a rehabilitation center to. Did he disappear? To overcome the effects of drug, and that's why, yeah, drugs are very very bad for our mental and brain health. All right,
Also for your physical health too.
absolutely right. Oh yeah, Nisit is here. Um, I have Sahas' hand and also Pujani. Let's begin with Sahas. Oh, did he come back from the previous class?
Wait, so how should it be here?
Right. Okay. That's okay. Pujani?
So, aren't vaccines drugs? So therefore, if they're drugs, aren't there?
But there's a certain dose for medicines, so but
Yeah.
on other drugs like bad drugs, there's no actual set dose, so people actually um use them, drink them, eat them in too many quantities. So if it's medicine, then uh even if you have too much medicine, that can be bad. So you should always follow the dose.
That's
Yes.
right. Unfortunately, I met this doctor he passed away in Cambridge. I was visiting them for spiritual counseling, and he has done drugs experiments on his own body because he could not find subjects for it. He thought he could use himself, and what happened was, as a result, his body became violently shaking, and it led to Parkinson's disease. And being a doctor himself, he has tons of money, so he could afford to live in that assisted living facility. That is like you spend about 12,000 US dollars a month to live there. Can you imagine spending that much money to live in that facility?
And every month too.
And every
Th-
month. And
That's
I could not help him because by that point his body has gone to a place that is not reversible. So he had to quit working. Imagine, like, to become a doctor, you work super hard, and even then, your wisdom in science knowledge didn't really help you to stop it, because sometimes, no matter what level of knowledge you have, you get into bad habits. No, no matter what, because I remember even in Sri Lanka, this executive officer who earns about 4 lakhs Sri Lankan rupees a month, he's an executive, he's a director, he's married to a doctor, and he also got addicted. So all that money he has couldn't save him. He was crying like a baby, and at which point he was already late, that his body was not able to be controlled by any external anything that existed in the world. So in the end, sometimes these ordinary people have better wisdom than some of those executives, that they try not to not to do that at all. They keep their precepts closely, and they feel like they can enjoy their life fully without using stimulus like drugs.
what is lax?
Once again,
What is lax rupees?
lakhs is like, okay, so it's like 400,000 Sri Lankan rupees. I would say it's like 2,000 US dollars a month.
That's a lot.
For
It
Sri
is.
Lanka, that's a lot. Here it may not be, but to you live in Sri Lanka, that's more than enough. You will you will live like a king for that money in Sri Lanka. Anyway, so I'm sharing these experiences because I have, it's sad sometimes when I know they need help and I can't help because it's like it's gone too far. This is why sometimes some I would say attachment to drugs is also part of the 12 links of dependent origination. It's a form of attachment, right? And it becomes, when you break that cycle, the whole cycle breaks. The wheel will not be moving. That's the point, actually. This is a wheel, right? The nature of a wheel is to spin. But when you break that wheel somewhere, it lags and then it stops. So that's why I'm inviting you all to somehow draw it and put it on the wall of the 12 links of dependent origination, just for your knowledge, so that when you go to school and when you later think about Buddhism, like what Hamdruo taught us in Dhampasala, you can think of these things, because our mind's nature is to forget things. And sometimes we don't even know the good terms to find, look for, and it's good to have it near you in your collection. And you can also take a picture and keep it with you for future reference. Anyway, shouldn't we stop now? Thank you for coming. And yeah, Dina, take care. Many blessings. And we will